Before we go to the conferment of the Doctor of Laws honoris causa, I would like to just say something personal to all you graduates and to our Vice President. She has heard this before, but I needed to let you know. When the presidential campaign began 2 years ago, my youngest son, a 32-year-old lawyer who was already a director and chief of staff at the Governance Commission of the Office of the President, he works for government, came to my wife and me to tell me that he was resigning from his job. I said, why? He said, Dad, I'm going to volunteer as an unpaid worker in the campaign of Leni Robredo. So I said, why do you have to resign? He said, Dad, this is the most important election we will ever have. Fathers cannot tell 32-year-old lawyer sons what to do. So we accepted his decision, and for the next few months, he worked as an unpaid volunteer in the campaign of Leni Robredo. I did ask him one question when he said he was going to resign. I said, do you know Leni Robredo? And he said, not personally. Does she know you? And he said, no. But that gives you an idea of the kind of person we have today as our illustrious speaker, who has chosen to honor us this morning with her presence. Let me also cite that even though she accepted this invitation months ago, we did not expect, or I forgot that the Ramon Magsaysay Awards, which is going to be held today at the Cultural Center in Manila, is an event where she has to preside over. So, over a month ago, I sent her a message that said, ma'am, we understand the importance of the Ramon Magsaysay Awards and your role, and that we can postpone your coming to Baguio at another time to speak before our graduates. She chose to come. And for that, we are grateful, Madam President, Madam Vice President. She will have to leave after her talk because she has to rush back to Manila to be at the Cultural Center at 4 o'clock this afternoon. May I request the Vice President to please stand in the center of the stage? Conferment of the degree of Honorary Doctor of Laws on Vice President Maria Leonor Gerona Robredo. Republic of the Philippines, University of the Cordilleras, Baguio City. Maria Leonor Leni Gerona Robredo. Through years of dedicated public service, has forged her image as a public servant to the masses. When she was pressured for having big shoes to fill, she slipped on a pair of humble chinelas slippers and continued the stride towards what we have now come to know as chinelas leadership. Anchored in the people first principle, she shared with her husband, the late Interior Secretary Jesse Robredo. She spoke for the underprivileged using the language of law. After passing the bar, she could have settled as an associate and probably eventual partner in any top private law firm in the country. But instead, she opted to join the public attorney's office to defend those whose voices are often silenced by poverty and lack of influence. As a public attorney, she made legal services available to the poorest people from distant rural areas through the alternative lawyers group called Sentro ng Alternatibang Lingap Panligan, otherwise known as Saligan. While representing them free of charge, she understood firsthand the struggles of marginalized sectors enough to identify key areas in dire need of improvement. Leni Robredo was part of the Saligan team that helped farmers from Sumilao, Bukidnon acquire their own lands, ending a decade-long struggle in reclaiming their ancestral land. The 144 hectares accorded to the farmers who have been deprived of a better future and countless economic opportunities now have that opportunity to improve their lives, removing the shackles of poverty, of being enslaved by tilling lands they could never swear to call their own. With no inclination to enter politics, she could not deny the clamor of her people for a leader who will impose a revitalized image of genuine public service, an image they saw reflected perfectly by Leni Robredo. As the representative of the 3rd District of Camarines Sur, she authored and co-authored bills centered on the welfare of people at the fringes of society or the laylayan. 14 of the 121 bills she filed as author or co-author in Congress were signed into law. She was a champion of the Freedom of Information Act and sought transparency in government transactions. Some of her notable bills signed into law, such as the Tax Incentives Management and Transparency Act and the Sangguniang Kabataan Reform Act, are all geared towards her advocacies. Leni Robredo used her knowledge and practice of law for a much greater purpose. This echoes our university's tenet of using education as a catalyst for genuine social transformation. Perfectly in sync with the country's current state, she stands as a beacon of hope for those who have given up. She upholds the ultimate purpose of law, which is to protect one and all, regardless of background, and to grant them equal footing and protection under the eyes of justice. By virtue of the authority vested in the University of the Cordilleras by the Republic of the Philippines, and upon recommendation of the Board of Trustees, and in behalf of the entire university community, we hereby confer the degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa on Maria Leonor Gerona Robredo, Vice President, Republic of the Philippines.
Thank you very much. Kindly take your seats. Chairman Jesus Salvosa and the members of the Board of Trustees, President Ray Salvosa, and other members of the Executive and Academic Council present, Dr. Steve Muncy, Executive Director of the Community and Family Services International, faculty, non-teaching staff, alumni and parents present, my fellow graduates, honored guests, mga minamahal kong mga kababayan, magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Thank you very much for inviting me to celebrate with you during this momentous occasion. Today marks the beginning of a new, exciting chapter in your lives, one that gives hope and brings great promise to our country's future. So congratulations, Batch 2017, for a job well done. Let me also express my deepest gratitude to the University of the Cordilleras for giving me the honorary degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa. This is an honor and a privilege, one that I will treasure and strive to always be worthy of. Dear students, before you move forward and part ways, take this moment to look back and be grateful to those who have accompanied you throughout this memorable journey. Remember your parents who worked very hard and sacrificed a lot to provide for your needs. This day belongs to them as well. Think of your peers and classmates who lifted your spirits when days got rough and extra challenging. Think of your teachers who guided you along the way. Look back at those sleepless nights, those countless readings and grueling exams. These are the hurdles that have shaped who you are today. You see, our world has rapidly changed since you first entered college. Today, in many parts of the globe, racism and gender discrimination continue to challenge our notions of human rights and equality. In many countries, populism is on the rise and democratic institutions are under attack. Terrorism has taken new form, using the internet to gain following and to recruit young members. Globalization has made it easier for people and information to cross borders. Here in the Philippines, hatred and violence have been steadily creeping into our national narrative. In extraordinary times such as this, we ask ourselves, what have we become as a nation? Is this who we are as a people? What can we do to turn things around? Nowadays, so many things are being hurled at the youth. Young people are being accused of being too comfortable and consumed with themselves. Many of you have bucket lists to complete, broken hearts to mend, and identity issues to grapple with. I know many of you ask, ano ba ang pwede kong gawin? I too had these moments of doubt and questioning. You see, I was very shy when I was your age. I was the type who refused to run for the student council or take part in school politics because I cannot imagine myself speaking before a huge crowd. In school plays, my younger sister would always land the leading role while I stayed behind the curtains, preferring to do backstage work. But when I entered the university, everything was already laid out for me. After taking up economics, I had to proceed to law school, take the bar, and become a lawyer. My father was a longtime judge, and being the eldest child in the family, it was only logical that I follow in his footsteps. I was duty-bound, but it was a future I openly embraced. But life took a most unexpected turn. During the years leading to the 1986 EDSA revolution, the whole UP system was caught up in the political difficulties of our time. We were not required to go to our classes, but it was necessary for us to know what was going on. I saw that period as our generation's call to action. We did not have Facebook Live or Twitter back then, but we never felt disconnected, especially from the social issues that plagued our nation. I eventually graduated in April of 1986, just 2 months after the EDSA revolution. I left UP with a fervent desire to take part in rebuilding our country. Perhaps it was youthful idealism or just sheer excitement, but I felt I had an important role to play. So I decided to set aside law school for the moment and work in government. Why do I always go back to this story? Because in many ways, it was the political climate of those tumultuous years that shaped my own personal journey. It taught me that our rights and our freedom are worth dying for. It taught me that the youth has a powerful voice. It taught me that when it matters most, our people come together, and at the cost of personal safety and with much sacrifice, fight for the things that are good for our families and for our children. This is the Filipino that I got to know when I was young. The Filipino who will fight for freedom from oppression of all kinds, for the freedom to speak, even dissent, for the right to be considered innocent until proven guilty, and for the peace of mind that our streets are safe and that we can trust those who are tasked to keep us safe. Those events during my youth led me to where I am today, and to why I believe the Filipino people is worth every sacrifice. 3 decades after, our country is at crossroads once more. And like many of us years ago, your generation will also be at the fulcrum of the fight for our nation's future. Some of the things your generation will have to make a stand on have to do with the following. They say that democracy has failed our people because freedom has caused the poor to remain poor while the rich gained more. People from nations all over the world seem to be drowning in frustration and anger because of the neglect that those in power had shown to those who were left behind by progress. Perhaps it is time for change, they say, and so populism, protectionism, and nationalism started to gain support. I do not look down on that anger. I too believe that more attention could have been given to the last, the least, and the lost. But the question is, are we willing to give up our principles because of this? Are we really ready to throw our freedoms and our rights for change that goes against old-fashioned values of empathy and collaboration? Which path should we choose? My dear students, there is a time in our lives when we have to make that crucial decision. Will we side with the truth, even if it is unpopular? Former US President Joe Biden wrote an article last Monday about the hate groups in Charlottesville, and he said something quite striking, and I quote, "If it wasn't clear before, it is clear now. We are living through a battle for the soul of this nation, Close quote. I fear that so are we. Today, our nation is caught up in a clash of opposing values. For instance, the ongoing operations in Marawi continue to tear apart communities, instilling fear and anxiety among our people. But even the horrors of war cannot dampen the Filipino spirit. The simple everyday acts of heroism among soldiers, volunteers, and locals proves that trials and adversities only make us stronger. My dear graduates, the only way to stop this emerging culture of violence and impunity is to counter it with a culture of empathy. This is something I discovered during my days as an alternative lawyer for an NGO called Saligan. For more than 10 years, we would visit the farthest and most remote villages to provide free legal help to marginalized communities. We would eat and live with farmers, fisherfolk, rural women, and indigenous peoples. We would listen to their stories, personal accounts of how some of our laws have become instruments of discrimination and injustice. Genuine service demands that we always come from a place of understanding and empathy. Empathy gives voice to the weak and powerless. Empathy teaches us to listen and not to impose ourselves on others. Empathy translates into empowerment. It makes people dream and realize their full potential. And as you enter this crucial stage in your lives, may you fight anger with empathy, hate with compassion, and hopelessness with action. Stay true to your core, and you will be surprised how the darkest of times will reveal the light inside you. I know many of you here today have big plans for the future. Some of you may perhaps become doctors, lawyers, teachers, artists, public servants, and even CEOs of your own companies. When that time comes, I hope you will choose to go where you are most needed. The journey will be tough and harsh at times. Along the way, people will question your motives. They will laugh at your dreams and say that your ideas are too lofty. They will persuade you to take the easy way out. Do not conform. Do not be discouraged. Take that leap of faith. Manalig lang at magtiwala. As you leave the hallowed halls of this university and carve your own paths, I hope you will keep in mind the poor and the powerless. Our people need you, now more than ever. Remember that the task of creating a just and more humane society falls on everybody's shoulders. And there is so much that we can do if we can get everyone on board. So class of 2017, go forth and be living symbols of hope, especially for the last, the least, and the lost. Turn your ideas into tangible solutions, blaze trails, and create beautiful disruptions. The future of our nation rests in your hands. We are counting on you. Maraming salamat. Congratulations muli sa inyong lahat.